This is a story about colonialism, war, and 9 executions. Whoa, sorry, that was a little intense. I'm a happy person, that was not necessary. Let's take a deep breath and start over. Welcome to the Cumberland Monastery, a quiet and peaceful place located in northern Rhode Island. It's home to the Cumberland Library, Senior Center, Office of Children, Youth, and Learning, and this super old basketball hoop. This building and the grounds itself are beautiful and historic, but that's only part of why we're here. In the woods behind the buildings are winding paths and trails that are open to the public, very peaceful, and allegedly haunted. I've entered into the woods to find the site where 9 colonists were tortured and killed by Narragansett warriors during King Philip's War. It's a dark piece of history in America's smallest state. This is the true story of 9 men's misery. The first location in this story that I had to track down was a monument that was originally constructed in 1676 and is believed to be the oldest war monument in the United States. That's right, Cumberland, Rhode Island supported the troops way before whatever un-American town you live in. Anyway, I've tracked down a lot of hard-to-find historic spots in Rhode Island, like a forgotten plane crash stuck in a swamp since 1971. The remains of a nuclear facility where a fatal criticality accident happened. Or the hidden remains of Hampton City, a ghost town dating back to the 1600s. And nothing prepared me for this exploration. I started off this journey on one of the main trails, and 5 hours later, I'm just kidding. It's literally a quarter mile from the parking lot. See? Here's a map of all the monastery trails, which I highly recommend you visit. But for 9 men's misery, you can park right here, and the monument is a short walk over to right here. The monument itself sits above a small hill isolated off the main trail. Walking up the short path reveals a pile of stones cemented together with a cement pillar in front. On that pillar is a plaque that reads, 9 men's misery. On this spot where they were slain by the Indians were buried the 9 soldiers captured in Pierce's fight, March 26, 1676. By this point, you'd be right to assume that it's supposedly the spirits of these 9 men that roam the woods here. But what happened here, and why were they slain? Oh boy, let's hop on in my time machine, which, yes, is a call hog, and no, it's not for sale. Welcome to New England in the 1600s, a time when English colonists were steadily encroaching on tribal hunting grounds, fishing areas, and territory. Land was taken through a mix of legal pressure, broken treaties, and outright force. I know, that's the very short version. And I gotta note, New England at this time wasn't a single native nation, but a region of independent tribal communities, each with its own leadership, dialect, and territory. The tribe at the center of our story are the Pokanoket. Their homeland stretched from the Taunton to the Seekonk rivers, and they stood at the center of a vast network of allied tribes. Later, historians would start using the word Wampanoag as a kind of catch-all term for basically all the indigenous people of this area. And if there's one thing I hate, it's anyone who generalizes anything. It was a busy time in New England, and I want to introduce you to a couple people who really shaped history from here. This is Massasoit Ousamequin, the great sachem or leader of the Pokanoket and head of an alliance with several other tribes. He is best known for forging a peace with the Plymouth colonists that lasted for more than 40 years. When you see those classic Thanksgiving drawings, that's BME, big Massasoit energy, baby. After Massasoit's death, his sons took on that leadership. First Wamsutta and later Metacom, who the English called King Philip. That name was their way of presenting native leadership into terms they understood. At first, he tried to follow his father Ousamequin's path of peace, but as colonial pressure grew, conflict became harder to avoid. 1675. That's when Native American John Sassaman, a Christianized native interpreter who had worked for both the Pokanoket and the English, was allegedly murdered after being suspected of spying for the colonists. 3 elite Pokanoket warriors were accused and executed by the Plymouth colony. The murder, trial, and executions is the moment that lit the fuse for King Philip's War. Native forces launched raids on colonial towns, and colonists retaliated by burning native villages, and the cycle quickly spiraled out of control. The war spread across Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, and Maine, involving numerous Native American tribes and colonial militias. So, who do we got on both sides? First, we had the Native American forces, led by Metacom. This alliance included several tribes, led by the Pokanoket and joined by the Wampanoag, Nipmuc, Narragansett, Pocumtuc, and some Abenaki groups. They were fighting to defend their land, sovereignty, and way of life, which were being eroded by English settlement, legal domination, and economic pressure. The colonial forces, led by Benjamin Church, were supported mainly by English settlers from New England colonies, Plymouth, Massachusetts Bay, Connecticut, and Rhode Island. They also had support from some native allies, including the Mohegan and Pequot. The colonists were fighting to suppress native resistance and lock down land and power in the region. Wow, super cool, guys! It's easy to picture this war as a simple clash between colonists and native forces, but there's nuance, bro! In reality, it was a tragic series of impossible choices made by individual tribes and families trying to survive. Here's a map showing all of the major battles of King Philip's War, and I could easily talk about each one for way longer than you want. The one we're focusing on is Pierce's Fight, which happened right here in what is now Central Falls on March 26, 1676. This is where Captain Michael Pierce led a group of about 63 English soldiers and 20 native allies on a mission to track down native forces. But they walked right into a massive ambush. According to the book King Philip's War, it is said that as they marched, they were watched by Narragansett. Somewhere close to the Blackstone River, they spotted 4 or 5 Narragansett fleeing as if wounded or hurt. Had a more experienced commander witnessed this show, he might have immediately fallen back. However, Pierce and his troops charged after the bait, suddenly finding themselves surrounded by about 500 Indians who, in very good order, furiously attacked them. Only 9 English soldiers survived the ambush, and while exact details of their story are unconfirmed, one tradition holds that they were chased north about 3 miles through unfamiliar swampy terrain towards what is now the Cumberland Monastery grounds. According to accounts, Narragansett warriors captured them near this spot where they were tortured, scalped, and executed, not just as an act of vengeance, but also as a warning to other colonial militias pushing into their territory. The soldiers' mutilated bodies were discovered near this spot in the woods a few weeks later. English soldiers created a mass grave nearby and placed a pile of stones to mark the spot. This is one of the earliest photos of what it originally looked like, and has been in continuous existence since 1676. And according to a Providence Journal article from 1886, whoever invented the name of the place is unknown. And of the legacy of hauntings here also says, you probably could not hire a Cumberland farmer's boy to go along the driftway at night. Hold up, it's time for 9 Men's Mystery, where I will quickly cover some of the strange happenings here. First, in 1790, a group of medical students went up to the place and dug open the grave, and had stretched 3 of the skeletons on the ground when they were discovered. Locals shut it down and called it a first-class outrage. Wait, hey, don't cheer for that. The crazy part was that one of the skeletons was of extraordinary size, and its skull had a double row of teeth, recognized as that of Benjamin Buckland of Rehoboth, Massachusetts. The skull was even turned over to the Rhode Island Historical Society in the 1800s, but sometime in the early 1900s, it mysteriously vanished from their collection. And I definitely don't have it. Today, while walking the monastery grounds, some visitors report hearing horses galloping through the woods, the battle cries of Native Americans, and men screaming. Though, that could just be me running through the woods. Pierce's fight in 9 Men's Misery was one of the bloodiest defeats for colonial forces during the war, and this monument has existed in some form for almost 400 years. The one we see today was constructed in 1928 by the Trappist monks who owned the monastery property and decided to restore and formalize the memorial. So how did 9 Men's Misery fit into the bigger picture? Well, the story shook the colonies. Morale was low, towns were being burned, and it felt like the Native Alliance had the upper hand. But at the same time, it pushed colonial leaders to organize more coordinated, brutal counterattacks that escalated the war even further. As for Metacom himself, he kept leading raids through 1676, but the Native alliance began to fracture under the sheer weight of colonial numbers, scorched earth tactics, and food shortages. In the closing months of the war, Metacom was mainly concerned with avoiding the thousands of English soldiers tracking him. In August of 1676, Benjamin Church, that guy from earlier, he led a search party for Metacom and received information from a Pokanoket who had fled Metacom's camp, revealing that Metacom had killed his brother for suggesting peace with the English. This same native guided Church to Metacom's camp, here in Bristol, Rhode Island, with the camp being located at the base of Mount Hope. The English soldiers crept up and caught the party by surprise, and Metacom sprinted through the woods trying to make his escape. But he and his warriors were overwhelmed. And although English soldiers had been pursuing him for months, it was another Native American, an ally to the English, who fatally shot him. A site marker near where he died is located in a quiet, unassuming part of the woods in Bristol. The engraving on the marker reads, "In the miry swamp, 166 feet west-southwest from this spring, according to tradition, King Philip fell, August 12, 1676. This stone placed by the Rhode Island Historical Society, December 1877. The war in southern New England largely ended with Metacom's death. In most ways, without him, the native resistance collapsed. By the war's end in 1678, more than 1,000 colonists and 3,000 natives had died, or roughly 10% of the total population of New England. And even 400 years later, monuments and gravestones like Nine Men's Misery dot New England as reminders of the land's bloody past. And hey, good news. While Metacom may have been branded a villain in 1676, history has been much kinder to him. This land, known as Pocumtuc, was Metacom's home in Bristol and the site of his death. Thankfully, the woods here are virtually unchanged since he lived here. And in 2024, Brown University transferred 255 acres of this ancestral land at Mount Hope back to a preservation trust led by the Pokanoket tribe. And if you venture into the woods here and scale the hilly terrain, you'll come upon a marker pointing towards Metacom's seat. The path leads to a large rock wall with a formation, where it is said the great sachem once held meetings. It was the political center from which Metacom began King Philip's War. It's hallowed ground, and it evokes the opposite feeling of Nine Men's Misery, a sense of peacefulness and calm. Today, the Pokanoket plan to use this land for gatherings, ceremonies, and stewardship of the coastline. Their sachem, Dancing Star, called the return historical and significant because it restores not just acres of land, but a living connection between people and place. Pocumtuc is a reminder that the Pokanoket are not just figures of the past, but a community still here, still caring for their homeland. So let me amend my opening and say, this is a story of survival, heritage, and resilience. I'd like to thank Don Strong Turtle Brown Jr., Pokanoket tribe historian, for fact-checking and allowing me to capture footage at Pocumtuc. Please visit pokanokettribe.org to learn more about the legacy and mission of the Pokanoket. And also big thank you to the Cumberland Public Library for sharing historic photos and the right books to tell this story. To learn more about hidden New England history like this, check out the rest of my Abandoned from Above series on my YouTube channel right now.